Welcome to my studio and welcome to another edition of Art Success with me, Adelaide Damoah. Today I'm interviewing a really lovely lady by the name of Daniela White here at Second Floor Studios in Woolwich. Daniela graduated with a degree in fine art from Kingston University in Surrey, which happens to be where I went. After she graduated, she went on to Goldsmiths College to complete a PGCE, which allowed her to go ahead and teach for about 20 years at a secondary school. While she was there, she was head of the art department and she even managed to set up a whole GCSE in photography. Daniela went on to complete a master's degree in fine art painting at Wimbledon College and lately has moved away from teaching and is more going towards full-time painting here at Second Floor Studios. In fact, from July she'll be full-time. Daniela's main concern is with a sense of belonging because of the fact that she was actually born in Italy and felt uprooted when she was brought to this country as a child. So you can see a lot of it in her work. Although she's a painter, she actually uses a lot of photography, sometimes referencing very old photographs of family members and putting that into her work. It's really, really stunning work. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. I know that I've just given a brief introduction to your background. Could you give me a little bit more information, please?
Yes, certainly. Well, the work that I'm doing at the moment is really based around the idea of belonging in a fairly broad sense, because I mean there's belonging in the sense of living in London and therefore being part of the bricks and mortar and of the constant changing that has been happening in the last few years in London. There's belonging in terms of the areas, you know, where you sort of might live or you work. And obviously there's belonging to do with a family, which was actually where I first started. Partly because having moved away from Italy and lived most of my life away from Italy, I mean I was born in Italy, I'm Italian, there was always that sense of being ripped away from my roots and from my family. And so the idea of where do I belong has always kind of been at the back of my mind. And it's spread out into a whole range of different things, including photographing people in the city and doing work with an archive of family photographs and now looking at the environment of the River Thames near the studios, where I feel I have a new belonging.
It's so nice around here, isn't it?
It is gorgeous.
You were working in a school until very recently. Yeah. Are you now full-time focusing on the art?
Very nearly.
Yeah.
Come July, it will be full-time focusing on it. No, that's exactly right. Now I'm just going to dedicate myself completely to just doing my own artwork, which is a lovely feeling. It's just, it's just wonderful to think that I can actually do that for a bit now.
At the school, you were head of the art department, right? And how long was that for? Was it?
Well, I worked at that school for 20 years. Head of art was probably about 15 years, something like that. Yeah. And loved it. We had a great time and we had a wonderful team of people. So it really was a creative, buzzing place, and the students were terrific as well. Oh. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
And working with the students in that way, teaching art like that, did that feed into your practice at all?
It works more the other way around. That what I was doing would feed into my teaching, but the energy that you get from the students and the young people definitely feeds back into you.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge that you've had to face as an artist to date?
I think myself, without a doubt. The biggest challenge is to be able to find that space in which to be creative and to actually be in touch with yourself. When you're pressed for time, the temptation is to say, right, well, okay, I've got this day or this half day. I am going to do artwork and I'm going to achieve, a painting or half a painting and it kind of doesn't work like that because really you have to be relaxed and also on the ball and fresh to be able to actually create and produce. And then if it doesn't work, because you are not in the right place, not in the right state of mind, you have to be careful then not to blame yourself too much for it and then put yourself down for it. So I think in a sense the biggest challenge is keeping negativity at bay and keeping that openness, that openness to experimentation, that openness to accepting what you're doing and to taking the next step in a sort of appropriate, relaxed way, if such thing exists.
Do you have any ways of doing that yourself?
If I'm really stuck, I always start with colour mixing. So once I start mixing colours and putting down squares of colour, I'm quite happy, and then that kind of gets me started.
It just calms you down.
Yes,
and gets you back in the mood.
Yeah. And also doodling sometimes. Doodling, doing sort of designs. And before I did figurative work, I actually spent quite a lot of time doing abstract work. I was inspired by Kandinsky and the idea of the spiritual in art, the fact that actually to create a piece of artwork, a painting that communicates, it does not have to be about a particular thing. It doesn't have to look like something. It's the whole concept of abstract art. So sometimes actually going back to doing something very free like that, I think is very useful.
And what would you say was the thing that you've been the most proud of so far in your career to date?
Well, I'm very proud of the fact that I got my master's and that I have sustained my practice throughout everything else that I've had to do. But I think some of the work that I particularly like is some of this work which is up on here, which is to do with an archive of family photographs and trying to kind of piece together a kind of a history around it, and working with the idea of photography and how it doesn't actually tell you anything, that any stories, any information that you glean from it is actually in the viewer's eye. Because even with what I know of the people involved in the photographs, which is it cannot help but be limited, but even with that knowledge, from the photograph does not reveal any of it. So it's an interesting thing that we consider the photograph to be a piece of truth. It's a piece of evidence of reality, but in actual fact, all you're actually getting is a piece of paper with things on it. And in fact, I did a series of works also where I photographed scrumpled photographs and torn photographs, and in fact I think that is possibly one of them. Okay. And I made paper boats out of photographs as well, and
like this one.
Yes, like that one. So I thought that hung together very well. I was very pleased with that, actually. The other thing that I particularly liked is where I have been able to sort of use my work within the context of sharing ideas and good practice with with young students.
Yeah. I think that's pretty amazing, because over 20 odd years you would have inspired so many students.
I like to think so. Yeah. I mean, we had really good, positive classes, and the students produced beautiful work. And then I've had quite a lot of exhibitions as well, which it's wonderful to get feedback from people, and it can be a very insular activity doing your artwork. And I think for me the success is when you put it up and it communicates something to someone else, and they see something in it and they kind of respond to it, and they tell you something about the work, they reflect it back to you, and I think that's what makes it all worthwhile, really.
Have you done exhibitions independently, or have you been represented?
I've never been represented. I've never been any good at all at marketing myself. In common with a lot of artists.
Yes.
I mean, it's something that we have to work at. But yes, so I tend to sort of focus on doing the work.
Just forget about what's possible. If you could have any dream for your art now, what would it be and why?
I think I would like representation, and to have some sort of a steady outlet, because I feel it's quite enough to actually have to make it without well, I mean, we have to market it ourselves, but if there was some way that you could actually make the work and put it out and sell some, so as to be able to keep affording to be able to keep doing more. That would be my dream, to actually have someone who took it on and did something with it. That would be very nice. But then it's a dream a lot of us have. And I think these days it's really so much more about having to do it for yourself.
The art world that we inhabit is known to be a patriarchal art world, whereby as female artists we're but not in history books as much as men. We sell for significantly less than men. We're not as represented in the major galleries as much as men. So for a lot of women, it's obviously a negative, and it can be a bit of a downer. How do you deal with that and keep going as an artist?
Well, to be honest, I ignore it. To a certain extent, it has not affected me unduly. So on a personal level, and this is completely kind of selfish sort of way of looking at things, I suppose, on a personal level, it has not affected me all that much, I suppose, because I have been quite self-contained in what I do. Overall, as a kind of political issue, I think it is something that gradually people are whittling away at, and I think in time it will have to be redressed. But what is really interesting also is the fact that a lot of the people who are doing art are actually women. If you look at any, if you go at courses or at, sort of classes and things like that, a large portion of the people who are doing art are women. So it's quite strange in a way that the men are still being overrepresented, because there is actually quite a lot of women out there who are doing lovely work. But I have friends, women friends who are doing their work quite successfully, and so I haven't experienced that problem so much myself, because I've seen other people be successful who are women, and as I say, I have not really put myself in competition so much. It will, and it has to keep improving and keep kind of edging towards women being equally represented.
What would you say is your personal definition of success in the art world?
If I'm happy with the work.
Yes.
That's it.
That's it.
Yep.
Are you sure?
Okay. Plus a nice sum of money in the bank.
Nice.
What's my definition of success in the art world? Well, obviously, for somebody who's starting up in the art world and making a career of it, it has got to be to have recognition from galleries and to be picked in in museums and larger galleries. The success has got to be, I suppose, in terms of what you actually achieve within the marketplace, if you're really trying to make a career in that. But the thing is that for a lot of us, and there are so many of us making art, that doesn't always happen. That isn't always achievable. So I suppose it has got to come back to why are you doing it? And then it is, because you need to do it for yourself. And in that case, if you're not happy with what you do, then it's a real downer. So actually being happy with what you do is a success in itself, a major achievement. And the other one is to actually communicate to other people that you know, that you like, that are your peers, your friends, and just people in general, to see that they respond to it and that it communicates to them, and that therefore what you are doing has some value in terms of espousing human qualities and espousing that sense of belonging to the same kind of world, and to sort of sharing the experience of being a human being. So that's where I draw my line of success.
Nice. By your definition, do you feel like you are successful?
Some of the time. Catch me on a bad day and it might not. Yes, I think on that basis, I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right. Yeah.
Good. So what advice would you give to young female artists wanting to go down that road of art?
If you have to be an artist, you have to be an artist. You have no choice. So therefore, do it positively. Don't worry about setbacks. Don't worry about whether it's a male world or a female world. Do your work, put it out there, explain it, talk about it, share it, and demand that people show it, and that you're taken seriously. And don't feel that you are at a disadvantage to any male artist. Anything the men can do, you can do as well. And keep that in mind.
Hi again, and thank you for joining me for that lovely interview with Daniela White here at Second Floor Studios. We are having open studios between the 2nd and the 5th of June 2016. So if you'd like to see Daniela's work, please do come down and check it out. If you are watching after that date, then, well, her details are below, so you can always book studio visit with her if you'd like to come down and see her work. Daniela's studio is Unit 4, studio number 24. Please do subscribe to my channel, because by subscribing you get to keep up to date with the latest art success interviews, art success vlogs, exhibition vlogs and art studio vlogs. Take care. Until next time. Bye.